Florida State has a huge matchup against the Clemson Tigers this Saturday, going into Death Valley for a noon kickoff to also set up what should be a really good Week 4 slate for college football. Now, I know a lot of fans, including myself, don't necessarily love the noon kickoffs for Florida State, but I don't hate the idea of being stress-free and enjoying the rest of Saturday games after Florida State handles business in Clemson. Now, it's not quite the top 10 matchup we thought it would be before the season started, but Clemson should be ranked here. Despite them not being as good as we're used to seeing them, there's still not 25 teams that are better than them. So ignore the rankings here. This is, in fact, a huge game. I know the Boston College game last weekend has a lot of fans a bit hesitant now as far as their confidence goes, and I think people should just not overreact to that game. Granted, it was a pretty rough game for the Noles and did shed light on a few issues they have, but none of those issues are unfixable, and I trust that they've been hard at work all week doing just that. We did a bit of a deeper dive into what went wrong there in that game. You had some guys out with injuries, some weird weather stuff, and it sounded more and more like there was an issue with the flu going around the locker room and even the whole campus, it sounds like. Like I said, I know it wasn't pretty, but this fan base is a bit jaded at this point where we're just looking for things to be negative and overreact about. It's like the Boston College game completely overrules the LSU game to some folks, and that's just crazy. My stance on this has been the same since watching the game. Sure, it was ugly, but I think it was more of an anomaly that took a pretty hefty set of circumstances to make it that way. This is still the Florida State team that demolished a top 5 LSU team, and nothing has changed. It was a bad game. It happens. Now let's be done with it. That being said, spoiler alert, I think the Noles bounce back in a big way here this Saturday. When looking at these two teams, I think Florida State matches up pretty well against them. This isn't the Clemson team that we're sort of used to seeing. This isn't Deshaun Watson or Trevor Lawrence throwing to ETN or Mike Williams. This Clemson offense is actually a bit underwhelming this year. Kate Klubnik had a lot of hype coming out of college and definitely has the potential. We just haven't quite seen that translate all the way on the field just yet. They really don't have a true number one receiver. They still do have Will Shipley somehow. I swear that guy's been in college for like the last 10 years, but I guess they're probably saying the same thing about Jordan Travis. Florida State's defense, especially after the game last week, has some people worried, and frankly, I do agree. There's been way too many blown assignments in the secondary, leaving receivers wide open. You also saw the defensive line not really get a lot of great push against Boston College's offensive line. However, this defense has been very solid against the run. I'm not going to bore you with stats or numbers, but LSU's running back outside of a 140-something yard chunk run pretty much did nothing, and Boston College didn't hang in because of their running backs either. I think our main issues are in the secondary. Now, luckily, I think Clemson wants to run the ball in this game. I think we'll see them force feed Will Shipley and that Moffitt kid just because that's what they're best at, and I think it'll be in their best interest to keep this game low scoring, and you can play game control and clock control a lot better if you can run the ball well. I think Davis Swinney knows he can't last in a shootout against this Florida State offense, especially when it's working well, and honestly, who could? This is why beating LSU was so huge in Week 1. We initially talked about it in our season predictions and stuff about how huge it would be for Florida State to go into Death Valley 3-0, and they would have played a lot looser because of that. We already know Clemson kind of used their mulligan against Duke, and now if they want any shot at playoffs or even a conference championship appearance again, things are going to have to go perfectly for them. I think they know that they're backed up into a corner a bit, and losing to Florida State here puts an end to all of that. However, if you come out on defense and you do what you did against Boston College, letting a young quarterback gain some confidence from wide open throws, then yeah, maybe a confident Clemson team with no room for error becomes a lot more dangerous. You can't let them get into a rhythm and score early. I've seen a few people ask, what if Florida State wins the coin toss? Do they actually consider going offense first to set the tone? Now, normally, I always say to defer and get the ball back to start the second half, and I think I still do here, but I do understand the idea of switching it up a little bit. I don't think the defense is quite as bad as some people would make it out to be, but I do think the offense is a stronger unit. So maybe it would be a shock to Dabo have to go on defense first instead, and maybe the offense strikes quick, leaves Clemson playing from behind less than 5 minutes into the game, and it kind of never stops from there. I do think had that happened against Boston College, maybe that game goes a bit differently. I think it's still worth getting the ball to start the third quarter like usual and trusting in your defense to just do its job and get stops. But I think this is one time where I would truly consider going on offense first because, again, I think the worst thing Florida State can do in this game is let Clemson's offense find success early and stay in a rhythm. One thing I'll say about Florida State's offense is I think Jordan's been trying to do a little bit too much. Rather than taking what he gets from the defense and just picking up the first downs, he's really trying to take the deep shots way too often, in my opinion. It seems like there's a few plays where he's got a guy underneath for 8 or 9 yards, but is determined to push the ball 30 yards for a big play. And I get that. When you have the receivers that you do, it's pretty tempting, but you still got to stay ahead of the chains. A lot of times this means you end up with an incompletion rather than just picking up a first down, and I think that's killing some of your drives. I also think Trey Benson is tap dancing in the hole a little too much and not hitting his gaps hard enough. I frankly think Rodney Hill has probably been our best running back so far this season. It took Trey a while to get going last year. Then he ran like a man possessed all the rest of the year. So hopefully we'll see that come out of him again soon. But yeah, I think on offense, Jordan just has to go for simpler throws and keep things ahead of him. Stay ahead of the chains, sustain drives, and then Benson has to just run a lot harder. Hey guys, real quick, I just want to take a second after you're enjoying the content, you're enjoying talking Florida State football. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It means a lot. Now let's get back to it. Now let's touch on some injuries real quick. We had a few guys go out last week. Obviously, everyone knows Jordan, Travis, and Jaheim Bell went down at different points in the BC game. It does seem like all guys are back. It looks like Jordan will be good to go along with Jaheim Bell, Robert Scott, Mo Smith, and hopefully Akeem Dent. And I think that's huge. Those are two anchors on the offensive line. And I think we all saw how much Akeem Dent was missed last week. So definitely great news that all those guys are hopefully expected to be back and be full go for this weekend. Now, all this being said, I think this team responds. I don't think any of them are happy with how they looked last week, and I think they all want to beat Clemson. And they probably want to beat Clemson more than any other team, honestly. Florida State hasn't beaten Clemson since 2014, so no one on this team knows what it's like to beat Clemson other than Jaheim Bell. Maybe that's even a hidden advantage for the Noles. But either way, I think this team wants to make a statement similar to how they did with the LSU game. Jordan Travis, Fabo, Verse. I mean, all these guys came back to go for it all and to get to know what it's like to win games like this, go to a conference title game, and hopefully even the playoffs. So I feel like we see them focused on that, and then they go on a business trip only focused on that rather than looking ahead or worrying about anything else. I'm not sure if you guys got to hear the post-game speech from Mike Norvell last week, but it was a must-watch in my opinion and will make you probably want to run through a brick wall. But I think it points to the fact that the team and staff acknowledge that they had a bad day overall. They learned from it, and they're going to do whatever they can to make sure it doesn't happen again. I think we see this team probably play its most complete game of the season so far in all phases, offense, defense, special teams. I think we see them go into Death Valley and get its first win against Clemson in almost a decade. Leaving them 2-0 against the Tigers this season. Key to Mike Norvell, Tiger King memes. But I really do think this team goes in and gives the fan base and the entire country all the reason to forget about the BC game and prove yet again that they are a top team in the country. Clemson is a home underdog for the first time since 2016. And I see Florida State right now sitting as a 1.5 to a 2.5 point favorite. And I'm betting on that one big time. I think Florida State can win pretty convincingly here, especially if they put it all together right. And even if it is close, I don't think it'll be quite 1 to 2 points close, maybe more like 6 or 7 points. I'd say as far as score predictions, I do have Florida State winning maybe something along the lines of 38 to 24, which I think would still be massive. That's a 14-point win over a team you haven't beat in almost 10 years. I think we see Keon having another good week. I think we see Johnny have another good week also. He seemed to bounce back with his drops last week. I think we see both guys reach the end zone a lot this weekend. I also think we see Jaheim Bell play a big role here as well. As we mentioned, he's the only player on the team who's actually beaten Clemson before. And then Saturday afternoon, the whole team will know what it feels like. So yeah, I'm definitely predicting a good offensive showing from the Noles in this one. I have a lot of confidence in the Noles here, and I think they go in, get the win, and bounce back in a big way. Now, what do you guys think? Give me any thoughts and your score predictions in the comments below, and let's talk Noles.